I read a book recently. It says the CEO's job is to not look after customers. The CEO's job is to look after the employees who look after customers. The role of baristas is the most important role in our organization. The moment of truth of the brand is always in the hands of baristas. Let your failures or mistakes define.
Yeah. Hi, welcome to VentureVox, the first podcast brought to you by the Entrepreneurship Club of Epic Kandy Campus. Today with us, we have Mr. Dilupa Patirana. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
Hi.
It's a great pleasure to have you with us today.
Same here.
So, what was the main reason that you decided, let's have a big cafe chain in Sri Lanka? Let's start something big and different compared to other normal cafes.
Well, it was a matter of time, See, when I even joined Barista, I had this idea of generalizing coffee. I always thought coffee can't be a very premium experience, which is restricted to Colombo. When I joined also Barista, we had about 7 outlets, and all that 7 outlets are in Colombo or in tourist attracted locations. But I always saw there's a lot of potential out from Colombo, like in the suburbs, like Talawatugoda to Kiribatigoda, Nigambo, Jayala, Nawala, Nugegoda area. If we can adjust our offerings according to their likings, there's a huge market. And I always believed in Sri Lanka, a niche market is not a very big market because obvious reasons, right? We have little population and also GDP and our economic growth is also not very, impressing during the last couple of decades, let's say. So this niche was not growing big. So we wanted, if your organization has bigger intentions of being a big organization, then mass or getting this coffee experience generalized so that we can get more people into the category. It was a no-brainer, to be honest. So if you really see cafes are here for about 2 to 3 decades now. But if you really see during the last 3-4 years, you would see cafe, culture is growing. That is because I think we also decided, let's break this and go into the urbans and go into suburbs. So that is how it happened.
Yeah, it's nice. So you have around 35 outlets island wide and 300 plus employees. What does your usual day look like?
Oh, no, it's changed a lot. I have to say, I'm being here for now almost 6 years. So the time that I started, there was so much of work that I need to do to get the house in order. So I was more involved in operational activities. I was more involved in day-to-day operations, looking after the processes. Not actually looking after the processes, building up processes and streamlining things, the supply chains and all that. So it was so much hands-on. But so the time passed by and the business became big. We have now 35 outlets island wide. I can't remember a day that I went to about 6-7 outlets in a day. I used to go sometimes. There are days that I go to all the outlets in one day. So now it's different. Now I have a good capable team who's looking after the day-to-day operation, the operation teams to marketing teams to supply chain. But if you ask me a day like now, is I'm getting Barista future ready. So there's so much of infrastructure investments that we need to do. There's so much of technology that we need to infuse. We have to look after our employees and we have to think of new ways that we can educate them in 35 different locations. So that is what I do in day out. So I read a book recently. It says the CEO's job is to not look after customers. The CEO's job is to look after the employees who look after customers. So that hits me a lot. What I do as a CEO is to give a meaning to everybody's day-to-day work and then share the vision and mission and passion that the business has and I have with my team and align the values that our plans and our activities are, aligned to our set values. So that's how days go.
So as mentioned previously, you talked about employees and customer satisfactions. So we know how important like a barista's role is really crucial and critical. So what are the bars you set for the baristas in order for them to reach, in order for them to keep customers satisfied?
Yes, as you said, the role of baristas, that is the most important role in our organization.
Yeah.
Why I say it is they are the true ambassadors of barista, brand ambassadors of barista, and also they were the people who are really delivering our brand promise. So I have learned in services there are service gaps. The most of the gaps are created by them if we handle them wrong. So there's one gap of how we communicate what our customers to expect from barista was what we actually deliver. That is number one. Number two is how we have put our expectations on SOPs, that is standard operations procedures, versus what they really deliver. So they can create so much of differences in the service that we intend to deliver to our customers. So that is why I say the moment of truth of the brand is always in the hands of baristas. So to answer the second part of your question, that is how we keep them, ready for this role, is that our organization is a learning organization. I call it a learning organization. So if you really see when I mean it, our organization is just like an institution, education institution. Most of the baristas are very focused to get themselves educated properly on their skills, not only the technical skills but also the soft skills. And then if I talk about it, sometimes these guys have to come long way to our head office training centers to get themselves trained. Also, we have our coffee marshals who are good in brewing. We are sending them to outlets to train these baristas. And also, we have train the trainer kind of programs where we train all our managers to train the employees inside. And then we have a digital, recently we have developed a digital platform for all our employees to log in and learn. Like all these training sessions are recorded and they are on this digital platforms like a website, let's say a learning zone, so that they can at any time of the day, at any time then when they have little free time, they can go and learn. So I mean, we have equipped them with all sorts of resources to get themselves educated. But not only that, we are connecting their education into their career also. None of my baristas can confirm without their passing the examinations and getting into all these training sessions, so that the career ladder is also aligned with the training and development. So that is how we actually work on it. But in a bigger picture, I would always say to my employees that you should also know why you work, not only how and what you do, right? So if they really see a purpose or the meaning of what they do, then it is very easy for me to get themselves engaged in what they do really well. So that is how we have structured the whole baristas and their education in barista.
Next, I would like to ask about the challenges you face. So, what are the biggest challenges you face in the cafe business, and what are the strategies you use to overcome them?
When you ask me about challenges, let me be honest here. The biggest challenges that cafes are now facing is the challenge of this economy. You know, our economy is not growing. I can't even say it's stagnating, it's shrinking. The last 5 to 6 years, we are struggling with 80 billion to 90 billion GDP. When your economy is not growing, in fact, we had a minus GDP growth. When your economy is not growing, it affects the business so many ways. Like if you take a cafe or barista per se, what we are offering or what we are suggesting our customer is to upgrade their lifestyle and spend little time for them, for camaraderie, for have a social conversation. And it serves as a social, beverage. Coffee is always been. So when you are economically challenged as a population, you are always going back to your fundamentals. Like you need to put the food on the table. You need to send your children into the education. the first thing that you would cut very easily without any pain would be a cup of coffee, maybe, right? So when the economy is not doing so good, then we have pressure on it, right? And also, if you take an economy with a lot of inflation, people will lose the discretionary income. Discretionary income is the income that they have left after you spend all your, fundamentals, so that you can, have some recreations for you, like have some good times for you. So that discretionary income gets really, challenged when the economy is very difficult. So that is number two. And also, if you take the young generation, 70% of my customers are young, like from 17 to 35, 70%. So these guys should have more money, more opportunities, more jobs. They should not be stressed out, right? But here in Sri Lanka, it is not happening, I've read an article, it's about India. They say by 2031, they will have 42% of their population as middle income earners. That is about a population of about 650 million. And that is equivalent to a market of complete Europe together. But here in Sri Lanka, what is happening? In Sri Lanka, I read 3.1 million households are requesting subsidiaries from government. And we have only 5.2 to 3 households in Sri Lanka. It's about 60%. So that is a problem. And also I've read 300,000 employees have left Sri Lanka for employment. So that is my market that I'm missing every year. 300,000 gone. I should have sold 300,000 coffee for them. So this is the challenge. I mean, we really need to have a good performing economy for our industry to do well. That I think that is the biggest challenge that I have. Right?
Next, I would like to ask you, like, what's the most effective way of getting customers in Sri Lanka to not just introduce, but to consistently indulge in the cafe culture?
For that answer, I don't like to limit my answer to only cafe. What I have learned also throughout is could be any industry, any profile of consumers. The best way to attract them and keep them consistently with you is to deliver the best value for them. Right now, if you take my cafe barista, a customer comes to me, I need to give him the best value possible, and that value has to be better than my competition over a period of time, so that he gets loyal to me and he keeps trust in me and keeps coming to my outlet. When you talk about value, the formula goes as you have all the benefits up and the costs down. If you talk about benefits that you offer, it could be functional benefits like the quality of the coffee, the taste of the coffee, and the ambience that we set, and the quality of furniture that we put, and also emotional value like the brand, the equity that you take through the brand, the consumer takes through the brand, and how he's treated, how he's greeted inside. So all that is our values. So I always need to constantly push those values up. And then about cost, about the pricing, we need to keep the right pricing so that people would say, okay, it delivers, better value for my money. And then the energy, considered as a cost. So when you think about energy, what as marketeers we should do, we need to reduce the energy that a consumer would spend on buying a coffee. So we are talking about convenience. Having so many locations, create convenience. Having a website that you can order, create convenience. Having a rice processors that customer would come without wasting much time, he can get the coffee, that is convenient. And then you have another cost called social cost or the social risk. So if I use the right ingredients, if there's no risk involved in my beverages, at the same time, as a brand, I am more social responsible brand. So then people feel safe. There's no social risk because this company does not do bad outside. It does not pollute the environment. So all this have to be looked into. So when you increase the value as much as possible and decreases the cost as much as possible, then you create a very unique selling point for you. That is the best value for any industry in that in that way, creating the best customer value is the best strategy.
Yeah.
Time tested strategy for any business. Yes.
Next, moving on to a bit of the market side. So, how does Barista relate with popular market trends, and how do they manage to stay on like one step ahead?
When you talk about market trends, I'd like to put it this way. When you're the market leader and you have a bigger share of the pie, and also you have intentions to grow and grow mass, we always need to, be vigilant about what is happening outside. But when I do that, I always be extra careful and I put a lot of effort. We put a lot of effort to understand my consumer. So we did a research recently with all the 35 outlets. And then we found out that 70% of my market is from year 17 to year 35. So I'm talking about the generation Z. I'm yet to be served to generation Alpha. But this generation Z are different. And we really say it. And when we deal with them, we get to know them more. They're very rational. They are very vocal. They like flexibility a lot in anything, like in the place that they sit, to the lightings, and they talk about Wi-Fi, they talk about payment methods. They really like flexibility. And they are the people actually who change the culture with social media, and they're very independent. So we like to work with them. It is challenging for sure, but still that is how it's going to be. And our effort is to make our offerings, to their likes, and understand them. And more than understanding, I would say, would like to use the word called anticipation, so that we anticipate what you need even before you realize it, and then get our business ready so that when you want it, it is there. So I think, as you asked, if you want to stay ahead in the competition, you always have to anticipate. First thing is at least to understand, do a proper study about you, and then uh, anticipate what you're going to like in our business, and get ourselves ready to deliver when you want it.
So, has there ever been instances where you set foot to a wrong place? And if so, like what have you learned from it?
Well, I can give you enough examples, and we have stepped into wrong places many times. In a way, I'm liking it also, because I always encourage my team, and I always tell them, you are allowed to do mistakes as long as you don't do the same mistake twice. Because if you do the same mistake twice, I think they have not it's not a mistake, it's a decision. The decision that they have decided not to learn from the previous mistake. But as long as you do different mistakes, it's a sign of you're trying something new. And especially in an organization like Barista, we are growing at a rate, and also we are going to different territories. We are doing different experiments, NPDs. The mistakes is a sign. I mean, mistake is inevitable. There are a lot of mistakes happening. But the mistakes are most of the time inside. The success stories goes out. I think if we are talking about, I mean, most of the time in business, we talk about being innovative, when you need to do something and you need to anticipate the customer needs and things like that, we talk. But at the same time, if you have a culture that you are not forgiven for mistakes, then there's a real big clash in it. So I don't want to have that confusion in my employees' mind, that you can't be doing mistakes and you're penalized. At the same time, company is asking to be innovative. It doesn't happen. Like, Thomas Alva Edison did 1,000 experiments before he finds the bulb. So likewise, there could be mistakes. But what is more important to me is that we should not let our mistakes define us. We should learn from our mistakes and do great things. So as long as it is happening, I'm happy.
Yeah. I think that's why most young generations are afraid to step into new things, because they are scared they'll do a mistake and they're scared that will define them. I think that's the issue there.
Yeah, you should never let your failures or mistakes define.
Yeah. So if there's anyone who wants to start a cafe, what advice would you give them?
I would say not to start. make my life difficult. On a serious note, I have so much to share. Like, I've been here for 6 years now. I feel like, 60 years because so much of, experiences behind me. Uh, when I think about it, finally, I would always feel like if you're starting a cafe, there are so many stars. Cafes are starting. You need to think about the total consumer experience. Cafes, not about the coffee, even not about the service, not about the ambience individually. It's a complete package. Everything has to complement everything. Like your coffees to your food food and coffees to your ambience to music, the music to lighting, the lighting to customer service, the customer service to branding, the communication, it's all connected. That is what I felt, and it's a really difficult formula to really, solve, to be honest. But what you really need to think is a cafe is a complete sensory package. Your consumer sees it, your consumer feels it, your consumer tastes it, your consumer touches it. It's the whole sensory package. So when you design a cafe or when you design the operations of cafe, you really need to work on all the departments of this sensory package. Um, and in addition to that, I think you got to be patient and you got to be focusing on the the basics, right? Right. If you are a cafe, your coffee has to be good, and your customer service has to be excellent. So those are the two basics. I mean, we always stress. At the same time, you got to be patient also. Sometimes it takes time. Some outlets just really well from the day that it started. Some outlets won't, but the consumer will get used to you or get accustomed to you if you still deliver the basics, like your perfect coffee and excellent customer service. Finally, I also think if you do a cafe, you got to be a person who likes to see someone else is really happy. And even though you are really stressed and you're really dead tired, if you see somebody is happy, somebody is having a good time, and if you can enjoy that, I think that's the kind of people who should, start cafes.
True. So you lead the largest cafe chain in Sri Lanka and has around 300 plus young baristas. So what's leadership according to you?
Okay, it's the toughest question, but uh, but I'm not in a position great enough to define leadership. Like, I can't be giving a definition for leadership because I'm a student of leadership. I've been studying leadership for some time. So every time I study something, I find a new definition for it. But so far, I can tell you what is not leadership. Leadership is not about a rank. It is not your position. It is not how many people reporting to you. It is not an authority. I think leadership is if you have followers, then you are a leader. And if somebody follows you and if somebody gets inspired from you, if somebody gets motivated by looking at you and do the right thing, then you are a leader. I think it mostly evolves around the trust and honesty. So you have to be genuinely interested about your subordinates and who works right to you and who works left to you. And I have seen in my organization, there are so much of great leaders at very operational level or at very executional level. They are really good and, people rally around them, people trust them. So when you are a leader, I think you need to be genuinely happy to see your people around you making great things. And, even passing you should be all right. So that is real leadership for me. So that kind of leadership is really needed for business to, grow. And it is very difficult for me even, trying to be that person who walks the talk, not only walks the talk, but that talk has to be honest also. It's a difficult thing, Yeah.
One last question before we end the podcast from here. So if you would have coffee with an entrepreneur, who would it be and why?
All right. Tough questions are coming now. Okay. It's going to be a close call between Mark Zuckerberg and Howard Schultz. But since it's a coffee, I would go with Howard. because he's the founder and CEO. He was the CEO of Starbucks, who actually creates this whole culture of cafe. And I have read all his books. There were about 4 books that he had written. And I've learned so much of it. Like, it's like right now my course manuals. I read them. And I have some interesting questions so that I can ask him, because I know him a little more, because in his books also he had described about him and how he got through the recessions in USA. So there could be so many interesting things that we could, really talk about. But obviously I'll pay the tickets because I owe him a lot. So I will take the bill for him. Okay.
With that question, I would like to end the podcast. Thank you so much, sir, for joining with us today, and hoping to connect with you in future projects.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was really interesting questions, tough questions also. And I hope I did some justice to this podcast.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much, sir.